Hello, and welcome again to Living English. Today, we're looking at the words should and ought to, and at persuading. In our last episode of Sisters and Brothers, David told his story, why he didn't contact his parents or Anne for so long. Now Anne has found him, he has to work out what to do next.
They'll be so relieved you're safe. We didn't know what to think, David.
Can't I just disappear? You can pretend I don't exist.
Oh, you should have told me. I could have helped. Didn't you realise we'd come and look for you?
I just couldn't face Dad.
You could have told your sister.
I ought to have told you, Anne. I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry.
He's so beautiful, David. You can't keep him from Mum and Dad.
They're flesh and blood, David. They're Sam's grandparents. Don't you think they want to see him? Don't you think I want to meet your parents?
Rose is right, David. Mum and Dad so much want to be grandparents.
But not like this.
Your secret's out now.
Steve! It's all right, Sarah. Steve's right. I think David knows what he has to do.
What do you suggest? Hello, Mum. It's me, David. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm alright. Yep. Anne found me. Yeah, I'm working. Look, I'm so sorry that I didn't call you. Can you forgive me? Yeah. Okay, alright. I love you too. Yeah. Alright. Mum's crying. She's gone to get Dad. He's gonna be so angry. Hello, Dad?
I wonder if David's father will be as angry as David thinks. We'll find out in the next episode. First, what does David think he should do? Listen.
Can't I just disappear? You can pretend I don't exist.
David suggests he should disappear. He says, "Can't I?" He's suggesting something. Try saying, "Can't I just disappear?" with David.
Can't I just disappear?
Now let's look at some useful phrases. Should have, could have, ought to have. They are all to do with things that David didn't do in the past, and Anne thinks he was wrong not to do them. What are these things? Let's listen.
You should have told me. I could have helped. Didn't you realise we'd come and look for you?
I just couldn't face Dad.
You could have told your sister.
I ought to have told you, Anne. I should have trusted you.
Should have is used to talk about things it would have been better to do in the past. You can use it about other people or yourself. First, try saying it after Anne.
Oh, you should have told me.
Try some others using should have. I worn a jacket. I should have worn a jacket. Now I'm cold. You left earlier. You should have left earlier. Now you'll be late. They asked me to come. They should have asked me to come, and now I'm sad. And should have can be contracted to should have. The negative is shouldn't. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Anne also uses the phrase could have. Listen again.
I could have helped. Didn't you realise we'd come and look for you?
I just couldn't face Dad.
You could have told your sister.
Anne uses the phrase could have twice. I could have helped and you could have told your sister. Could is the past tense of can. By saying I could have helped, Anne is saying that she would have been able to help David in the past if he had let her. By saying this, she is also saying it would have been better for her to help. She also says, you could have told your sister. Anne is telling David off. She is angry with him because she is his sister and he kept a secret from her. Try saying, you could have told your sister with Anne.
You could have told your sister.
The final way of talking about things not done in the past is ought to. Listen to David use this phrase.
I ought to have told you, Anne. I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry.
David says, I ought to have told you. Ought to has a very similar meaning to should have. If you ought to do something, it is the right thing to do. You ought to give that money back. You stole it. David ought to have told his sister, because she is his sister and he should have trusted her. Try saying ought to in these phrases. You tell the truth. You ought to tell the truth. She win. She ought to win because she's the best. But notice that we say, I ought to have, not just I ought have. The negative is ought not or oughtn't.
Excuse me,
Yes?
don't you think you should introduce me?
You're right. I ought to have introduced you before. I should have told the viewers who you are. Now, this is Michelle Crowden. Hello, Michelle.
Hello, Brenton. And hello, viewers.
What else are we looking at today?
We're looking at persuading.
What is persuading?
To persuade someone is to convince them about something, to get them to agree with you. In the story, Rose and Anne agree with each other that David should go and see his parents and take his son Sam with him. But David isn't so sure. Let's look at how Anne and Rose persuade David to change his mind. How many reasons can you hear why David should go?
He's so beautiful, David. You can't keep him from Mum and Dad.
They're your flesh and blood, David. They're Sam's grandparents. Don't you think they want to see him? Don't you think I want to meet your parents?
Rose is right, David. Mum and Dad so much want to be grandparents.
But not like this.
Your secret's out now.
What was Anne's reason why David should go home?
She thought her parents would want to see their grandson.
Let's look at what she says.
He's so beautiful, David. You can't keep him from Mum and Dad.
She says, you can't keep him from Mum and Dad. You can't or cannot stop Mum and Dad from seeing him. Is she right?
When Anne says you can't, she's not saying that it is impossible for David to stop his parents from seeing Sam. She is saying strongly that it would be wrong.
Look at Brenton and persuade him that what he is doing is wrong by saying, you can't. You can't read a book while we're presenting Living English. You can't leave yet. We haven't finished. You can't sit there. It's too far back. Now, let's look at Rose's reasons for David going home.
They're flesh and blood, David. They're Sam's grandparents. Don't you think they want to see him? Don't you think I want to meet your parents?
Rose said, "They're your flesh and blood." That doesn't sound very nice. What does it mean?
Saying someone is your flesh and blood just means that they are your blood relatives. They are related to you directly. So your parents and your children are your blood relatives.
But your wife or husband aren't. And your wife or husband's family aren't either.
What other reasons does she give?
She says they're Sam's grandparents. So David's parents are blood relatives to David's son, Sam, too.
And finally, she says, "Don't you think I want to meet your parents?"
The expression, "don't you think," is another way of persuading someone to your point of view.
This time, help me persuade Michelle she is doing the wrong thing using "don't you think." Should pay attention. Don't you think you should pay attention? Being rude. Don't you think you're being rude? Should put that mirror down. Don't you think you should put that mirror down?
Oh, all right then. Let's look at the most persuasive argument of all.
Persuasive is the adjective from the verb persuade.
Your secret's out now.
Steve!
Steve says, "Your secret's out now." A secret is something you don't want someone else to know. But now David has been found, so his secret isn't a secret anymore. Finally today, let's look at two uses of a small word, so. Listen and see if you can hear them.
Look, I'm so sorry that I didn't call you. Can you forgive me? He's gonna be so angry.
So, used like this, is just another way of saying very. It's a bit stronger than very. I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry. By saying he's so sorry, David is telling his mother he is really, really sorry.
And he says, Dad is going to be so angry. He thinks his father is going to be really, really angry.
And I'm so sorry to say we have to go.